Now, let's move to number 2. Would you say what would you say number 2 needs to be?
Well, I think for hunters, hunters would probably even say that their sense of smell would be their most important sense. And, I think it could be argued that, that and vision both could be co-equal number ones based on a given need. Obviously, they need to use their nose to find food and to detect predators. But their eyes are also used for similar reasons. It's avoiding predation.
Yep.
And really, a whitetail's senses, all have one thing in common, and they all have every part of a whitetail's being relates to one of three things. One, finding food. The other is not being food to something else.
True.
And the third is finding the opposite sex to make more of themselves.
Yep.
So literally everything that a whitetail is geared to do really directly assists one of those core bodily functions, if you will, or survival functions. And so the sense of smell has been a debate for hunters forever. And, it doesn't take long if you read a lot of the outdoor, articles to find some writer who's put a number on it.
Mm-hmm.
Deer see 72 times better, smell, 100 times better or 1,000 times better or whatever. The reality is we don't know. We cannot measure that. There's no way to measure that.
Yeah.
What we can say, and Dr. Carl Miller at the University of Georgia has pioneered, really a lot of this scent communication and the understanding of scent communication in whitetails. One thing we do know is that little black thing at the end of their head is not really their nose. That's an opening to the nasal passages. That's all it is. And if you take a cross section of a deer's head, you'll see all these little circular, tubular type things that we call sensory epithelium. They're basically nasal passages that are lined with what we call sensory epithelium. Mm-hmm. And all that means is a lot of surface area to detect molecules.
Okay.
That's what it means. And all of this is many, many fold greater than a human's. In fact, we would be an embarrassment by any standard to almost anything on the earth as to how poor our, ability to smell things is. It's pitiful. Thank goodness we are a predator and that, we're not having to, we're mostly a predator of other mammal type things. And we can, so at the end of the day, our nose isn't as necessary for survival. And that's why we've evolved as we have with a very poor one. A deer, a dog, whatever. These are things that need a greater ability. And so what we found also is that the part of the brain that really is wired to the nose affects immediate behavior. And immediate behavior can tell a deer, that's food, that's enemy, that's danger, what have you. So they communicate with other deer, obviously through glands. Mm-hmm. So we have identified 7 glands in the whitetail. 3 of those we think are super important, and 4 of them either are unimportant or relatively unimportant, we think. But the 3 that are most important are the tarsal gland, one on the inside of the deer's back legs that they use to communicate all kinds of things with. The interdigital gland, the one between their hooves, which allow other deer to determine which way they're walking, or a predator. That's how they do it. They leave a scent trail. And then finally, the forehead gland, the glandular region around the base of a buck's antlers, which is under hormonal control. So these things are used to deposit scents in the environment. In the case of rub trees, bucks will rub this forehead gland all over those rub trees. A lot of hunters don't know that. They think they're just rubbing their antlers, but no, they actually rub the forehead gland. That leaves a scent that, using trained dogs, researchers have been able to show lasts for at least a week on a rub.
Wow.
Tarsal gland by far is the most important, we think, because it's kind of the signature of that animal. It's their driver's license, if you will. Bucks, does, and fawns all urinate on that gland. And what's interesting, a lot of hunters don't know this, but the tarsal gland, the smelliest part of a deer's body, a buck's body anyway, does not produce any scent of its own.
Really?
The tarsal gland is just a sponge. It's a wick. It's built to grab and hold urine. and it created a great environment for bacterial decomposition of urine. So what hunters are smelling is decomposing urine is what gives it that rutting odor. It's a very complex process of how that structure is built, certain specialized hair types and internal processes of water soluble compounds and all kinds of crazy science to get to a perfect environment on the inside of a deer's legs that captures urine and allows certain communities of bacteria to live there harmoniously and to create this wonderful thing that we call the rutting odor of a buck. Suffice to say that things like streptococcus, staphylococcus, some really bad things live there.
Really?
So be careful when handling a rutting buck because many bacterial communities live there, including some of those that are pathogenic to humans.
Okay.
So just be careful. Wash your hands. Don't eat a sandwich. Don't take a plug of tobacco after handling a tarsal gland.
That's a good safety notice right there. I mean, that's why you always cut those things off before you even open up the deer.
Well, I don't do that, but I do at least pay attention to them as I'm removing them. Just if I get them on my hands or something, I don't want to wipe it on the meat that I'm going to be later eating or something.
Right.
Just be careful. So the sense of smell, really is one of those that hunters will debate until we're gone. How far can a deer smell you? Is it 200 yards? Is it 400 yards? Is it a half mile, a mile? The answer is we don't know. We have no way to measure that. Every hunter has been busted at least 200 or 300 yards, I can assure you, regularly. But I think under optimum conditions, if the wind speed, the temperature, the humidity were all right, and you were a really, really stinky human, you could possibly get busted outwards of a half a mile, I think. But again, it doesn't really matter. What matters is watch the wind as a hunter and be vigilant there. Keep your own scent to a minimum. I'm what you call a semi concerned scent freak. I'm not over the top. So I do wash my clothes and scent free stuff. I hang them out. I watch the wind. I try not to get any Burger King smells on me from the drive through on the way or whatever. Yeah. But I'm not the person who's changing clothes 3 times or, doing that over the top. I don't run the scent control systems. There's a limit to my gadgeteering that I'm willing to put into my hunting, and to each their own. But when it comes to, I get the question a lot about, well, should I, urinate out of a deer stand or not? Is that going to spook the deer? And the reality is, there's no real clear evidence one way or the other. There's never been any science on it to any great extent. But I can say that I personally have done that many, many times. I have personally urinated in deer scrapes.
I was just about to bring that up.
And that generally fires up the scrape.
Yes.
In fact, one research project done in Texas many years ago by Dr. James Kroll was looking at the attraction of different off-the-shelf urine products at mock scrapes. So he went to had his graduate student go buy a bunch of this stuff off the shelf, your normal doe and heat kind of urine products. And then he also, for kind of grins and giggles, after he had his 4 or 5 commercial products, the next one was graduate student urine, where he had his graduate student pee in the scrape. And then the other was new car smell, which was a spray that makes your car smell like it's new. Yeah. And then the last one was water, just an empty scrape. And apart from the new car smell, that one didn't work real well. But the human urine was just as attractive as any of the off-the-shelf products was in that one study. And even the bare exposed soil with nothing in it but water was pretty attractive in and of itself, just the presence of a scrape area in the right location in the woods. So, I personally don't think there's much risk of alarming deer. And what I take with that is a couple of things. One, do deer know human urine from other predator urine out there? They have regular exposure to coyote urine, bear urine, bobcat, whatever the predators are in their area. Those animals are peeing in the woods every day.
Yeah.
And we don't. They don't encounter a lot of human urine by and large in the woods. Do they have the ability to determine that's human? I don't know. What I do know, though, is that predator-prey relationships are such that when a prey animal finds a predator's poop or pee, the research has shown that they typically consider that where a predator has been, not where they are now. It's just like if you're walking through the woods and you found, bear poop, it wouldn't immediately alarm you that a bear was right there. You'd say a bear has been here.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to be a little more cautious. If you walk along and you find a rattlesnake shed skin, you don't go, oh crap. A rattlesnake shed his skin here. I'll maybe be a little more cautious in the area. So I think it may increase your caution a little bit, but I don't think it tells an animal like a deer that a human is right there. And also, once you urinate in the woods, every second that passes, that scent is starting to dissipate.
Okay.
There's volatile compounds that are coming off. There's volatile compounds and there's stable compounds in urine. The volatile ones are leaving the scent real quick. If you're still up the tree, your body is never stopping to emit human scent. So, your scent profile is just as strong the last second you're in the tree. Your urine is getting less and less strong every second. So, I say all that to say, hey, if you're a bow hunter and you're super fanatical about scent and every little thing matters and you're the one willing to go to the lengths of changing clothes in and out of the field and running your ozonics and all that, then yeah, you might want to pee in a bottle.
Yeah.
Other than those type of hunters, and most of those are bow hunters and they're hardcore. I'm not knocking them. The average hunter doesn't need to worry too much about it, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, heck, like last year was my first time to hunt out of the state of Texas, and I was hunting with Josh in Nebraska, and we were doing all-day sits because we were hunting in the rut. And, me being naive to it, I was like, man, like, growing up in Texas, you don't take a leak by your stand. So I'm asking him, like, dude, like, what do I do when I got to take a leak, man? Like, we're doing these all-day sits. He's like, dude, just right off the ladder. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man, just do it. The deer don't care. And so I did, and I had a little spike come right up underneath our stand. Just kind of sniffed around on it, and then I made a mock scrape the next day and took a leak in that, and I had an 8-point at it that morning. So that definitely disproved something that I grew up thinking anyway. Yeah. But a question I wanted to ask you is, we're talking about urine isn't necessarily an alarm for the deer, if you will. So what about like the Tink 69 special rut, the special golden estrus, like those doe and heat scents? I mean, are those actually working, or should you not waste your money?
Well, you just happened to hit the very subject I did my graduate research on. And that's how a buck determines a doe's in heat. Is it her urine? Is it the secretions from her reproductive tract, or is it something else? Or is it some combination? And the quick answer is, and a lot of this dates back to the sort of original logic from hunters, the hunter culture, the hunter lore, came from the fact that deer hunters observed bucks going up to where does had peed and performing what's called the Fleeman or lip curl behavior.
Yep.
So a buck during the breeding season, almost exclusively to bucks, almost exclusively during the rut, find where does peed, and they come up and they lick that urine. They tilt their head back, they scrunch up their nostrils, and they create a vacuum pump, and they do what's called the Fleeman or lip curl response. So, and they're doing that to urine. So you're saying, all right, that's got to be it. That's how that buck's telling that doe's in heat. And it makes sense.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I was taught early in my science career, sometimes science can get in the way of a good story. And that's what happened in this case. And so Dr. Carl Miller, again referenced earlier, and several of his students, including some of my research, we kind of delved into this subject. And what we found about this special process, this lip curl behavior, is that it is bringing urine into a deer's sixth sense. Talk here about deer having the same five senses as humans. That is true. Mm-hmm. They have a true sixth sense. And it's not their ability to spot you sitting motionless 20 feet up a tree with the wind in your favor. This is a true sensory organ in the roof of their mouth called the vomeral nasal organ, the VNO. And it's a diamond-shaped pit. Next time you shoot a deer, look in the upper hard palate, the upper roof of its mouth. Okay. And you'll see a little oval diamond shaped pit. It's easy to find. And it's kind of where that peanut butter sandwich gets stuck in your upper palate when you're eating a peanut butter sandwich. You know what I'm talking about? Or Butterfinger.
I hate that. You got to get a good glass of milk for that.
Yes. So that's the spot where you look, in the upper palate. And so that pit is where that buck is sucking that urine into.
Okay.
And so by him getting the urine off the ground, and he has to tilt his head back to get the most efficient pathway for that gland to work that urine back to the back of the brain where the processing occurs. So the processing occurs kind of back of the eye of the deer. So it's got to travel back down this pathway. And, when that pathway was traced, it didn't go to the part of the brain that could tell that a doe was in heat. It didn't go to the part of the brain that controls behavior. It went to the primitive part of the brain that controls the secretion of reproductive hormones. So what's happening there is that a buck, when he finds that urine and he's tilting his head back and doing all that, he is not determining her estrus status from that. He is, in fact, taking a daily dose of Viagra. It's priming his system. It's keeping him hot and heavy and in the mood. So we've all seen rutting bucks. They're lunatics, right?
Yes.
They're going 24/7. They're just, they're wide open. And it's a combination of two things. One, an incredible surge of male hormone testosterone, combined with this Fleeman behavioral response that keeps priming the pump. So you've got a guy on Viagra and Red Bull, in the most reasonable explanation in human terms. But that's why bucks do what they do. And so it's necessary to keep that that buck primed and in the mood for does.
This is Viagra's Red Bull. Oh, that's a good one, man.
That's what's going on. And, nature created its own system for this.
Yes, it did.
Now, if we only had 2 weeks of the year to breed, I don't know, maybe Viagra and Red Bull is the answer. But anyway, we won't go there.
No.
So what we know based on the science is that deer are using their main olfactory system, their nose.
Mm-hmm.
Their nose does attach to the part of the brain. It's a parallel. If you kind of look at two parallel pathways, the nose goes to the part of the brain that controls behavior. The vomeral nasal organ below the nose, it's inside the mouth. It goes to a part of the brain that's below that. It's an older part of the brain. So they both have a direct purpose. We know a buck is telling a doe's in heat from the scent in the air. Now, the scent is concentrated from her reproductive tract, from her vaginal secretions. That is the source of this magical elixir of estrus.
Mm-hmm.
It is so strong that a buck can smell it in the air at some distance. We don't know exactly how far. Is some of it contained in her urine? My research would suggest probably not. And if it is, it's so low that it's not really that useful.
Okay.
Because I looked at estrus urine in terms of, I put it on, we had taken a bunch of does, taken out their ovaries so they couldn't create any odors themselves. They had no natural hormone secretion, and we would anoint them with different types of urine and vaginal secretions, bring bucks in there and monitor chases and behaviors. It's, a lot of behavioral deer research. And we just couldn't get any significant response to the estrus urine. However, when we introduced estrus vaginal secretions, bucks chased them at a statistically significant rate. So clearly the scent of estrus is contained at least primarily in the doe's reproductive tract, on her at all times, if you will. And there's a lot of behavioral research that confirms that.
So then do these scents, like I spoke about earlier, do they really truly
Absolutely
work?
Now, that does not mean the fact that science would not support doe and heat urine being a source of attraction to deer. Urine itself is a source of attraction.
Okay.
So, a deer encountering, and I have used them. I have used the real thing back when I was a graduate student, when I was collecting actual doe and heat real urine.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing with it in the woods as a hunter. And I've had some deer follow my scent trails, right to my stand. The science doesn't suggest that that's how they're telling a doe's in heat, but hey, it's a doe. It's a doe in my area. It may be a doe that I'm not familiar with. So that does not mean at all that urine products don't work.
Okay.
They just may not work for the reasons the hunter may think.
So I know the listeners might be thinking this. Hearing that from you and hearing that you use it, is there a particular scent that you like to use, or a specific
Actually,
brand?
I don't use much scent.
Okay.
In fact, the only places that I use scent now are when I'm bow hunting and when I need a deer to take its head away from me. So, for example, if I've got a deer coming down a trail, left to right or right to left in front of my stand location, and it's going to be side on as it's walking to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I try to draw up, I'm likely to get busted.
Yeah.
So what I do is I put some scent on the opposite side of the trail. So as it's walking down the trail, it turns its head away from me,
allowing you to get drawn back
on the other side of the trail for me and the deer. So it's me, the deer, me, the deer on the trail, and then the scent on the other side. So as the deer's walking along, let's say I'm to the right of the deer, I want the scent to be on the other side of the trail, so that deer has to take its head and move it back. It'll stop and allow me to draw, and it'll also take the deer's eyes off of me as it checks that scent source. So it gives me the bow shot that I want. So I'd use it very effectively for that. But other than that, I don't use scents currently.
Okay. Well, cool. All right, y'all, there you go. Another end to a Field Hunt Fridays episode. And we just want to thank Brian Murphy for hopping on with us today. Going over part 2, Deer Senses. Part 3 is next week. We really appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.